50-second warning. Please find your seats. Thank you. Call to order. Roll call, please.
Vice President Cons,
Here.
Director Wilburn,
Here.
Director Yanez,
Here.
Director Payne,
Here.
President Shandy.
Here. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Director Wilburn.
All those rise who are able. Please remove hats and caps. Place your hand over your heart. Active duty service members and retirees may salute or stand at attention. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Reckman, are there any updates to the agenda?
There are no updates to the agenda.
Members of the board, are there any items you wish to move from the consent agenda? Are there any discussion items to be added to the agenda? May we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice President Cons,
Aye.
Director Wilburn,
Aye.
Director Yanez,
Aye.
Director Payne,
Aye.
President Shandy.
Aye. All right, today we have one new administrator to approve. Mr. Smart, would you please make the introduction?
Yes, thank you. So I'm pleased to introduce Tricia Clough, who is being recommended as the interim principal at Ranch Creek Elementary School. Tricia is not here tonight, but I'm just going to read a little bit about her, and then I'll tell you what's next after that. Tricia holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Liberal Arts from Regis University, a Master's of Arts in Curriculum and Instruction from University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. She began her career in D20 as a bus driver and then as a lunch registrar. And then she moved into a teaching position at Frontier Elementary School as a first grade teacher, then was an RTI coordinator and a reading interventionist, and then moved on to Ranch Creek, where she was the RTI MTSS coordinator, and then became the interim assistant principal. And she's currently serving as the assistant principal at Ranch Creek. So she's done a lot in our system. And we're pleased to recommend her tonight for the position of interim principal at Ranch Creek Elementary School. Now, even though she couldn't be here, I figured she'd want to say something. So I did a little chat GPT and said, let's see what she would have said if she was here. So I'll just read that to you. So good evening, President Shandy, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Haber, and guests. Thank you so much for the opportunity to serve as the interim principal of Ranch Creek Elementary School for the 2025-26 school year. I'm truly honored and excited to step into this role. I want to sincerely thank Mr. Smart. Wow, I did amazing for his continued encouragement and guidance. It's been invaluable. And to Mrs. Evans, thank you for your outstanding leadership and steady support. You built a strong, positive culture at Ranch Creek, and I feel fortunate to follow in your footsteps. Although I'm well aware those are big shoes to fill. I'm looking forward to working with our incredible staff, students, families to keep the momentum going. Ranch Creek is a special place, and I can't wait to continue the work of the growing, curious minds, kind hearts, and maybe even surviving a few spirit days along the way. Thank you again for this opportunity. I'm grateful and ready to get started. So that's what she would have said had she been here.
Was that a custom-made bot that you asked?
You know,
or?
I'm not going to get into how we got there, but I'm just appreciative of what she said.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, welcome, Trish. All right, thank you. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda as posted.
Moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice President Cons,
Aye.
Director Wilburn,
Aye.
Director Yanez,
Aye.
Director Payne,
Aye.
President Shandy.
Aye. All right, the next item for board consideration is whether to adopt a resolution that initiates the development of a policy designed to uphold fairness and ensure student safety in athletic programs. This initiative will reflect on our commitment to student character development, align with the values of our community, enhance transparency for all stakeholders, and ensure compliance with applicable federal regulations. I would love to discuss genuine discussion on how we got here. Everyone, I'm sure, has seen the draft resolution that is posted. So I think it would just be really valuable to kind of jump in and talk about how we got here and why we want to do this. And then we'll explore the resolution as is, if there's changes, and then take a vote as to whether or not we want to adopt and how we want to move forward with that. So is there anyone who would like to jump in and talk about how we got to a draft resolution? Director Payne?
Sure. So I think recently, before I was even appointed to this board, we saw in the media, District 49 come about with a policy for their girls in sports. And I began gathering information about that and how that might impact our community, our families. I would also say that during the gathering of information, I think a lot of things happened very quickly, but then I was appointed to the board, and suddenly also we were having this conversation. For me, I'm born and raised here. I was born in Denver, lived here since I was 1 year old. We are Colorado Springs, even though we have 17 districts in this 4th judicial district. Many years ago, we came together as 17 districts to work on prevention and safety, and that was before Columbine happened. That work created recognition from researchers around the country on preventing violence in our schools. We didn't do that because we had a school shooting. We did that because it was the right thing to do. I just wanted to bring that forth because I felt pretty passionate that as a mom, as a parent, and then as a board member, as a girl that played sports in high school, not in college, unfortunately, I was just lucky that someone didn't bump me off the team. I didn't want our girls to go unprotected into the future, and for us not to consider policies similar to protect our athletes so that when they come back to school in the fall or in the summer, actually, to start trying out for sports, they had clear expectations of what the policies would be for this district, because it's the only place we have care, custody, and control of. And children need to feel like, if I'm going to try out for a sport, what are the risks? Am I going to be embarrassed? I felt that way even trying out for this board of directors. At my age, I feel like a rookie right now. So pardon my stumbling words, but you know, it takes courage to stand up for something or to come out and try to gather information and lead. And I want to make sure that our students feel like we've made policies that protect them and that they have clear expectations before they even try out for a sport. So I wanted to give a little bit of that background and just have really authentic conversation, transparent here with everyone.
Thank you. Director Cons.
The genesis for me, just to kind of sum up for everybody listening, is that I think I have had more calls and emails during my term on this board about safety issues in locker rooms, bathrooms, to a lesser extent, the actual athletics part of it, participating. It's really important to our community, and they have been clamoring for the safety and protection of all of our students for a long time. I've kind of got little bits and pieces I just want to add to the conversation, so I'm just going to be going through my phone. I just want to point out some things.
Sorry, Mrs. Cons. Director Cons, we don't allow phones.
Oh, I know.
I'm just
It's not a classroom. In the CHASA bylaws, 2860 game contracts. This is kind of a minor issue, but I just wanted to throw that out, that should we pass the resolution and then the pending policies to change, you know, to be more specific for our students. I just suggest that we write each of our schools' contracts so that it reflects that, so we're not forfeiting any games from other CHSA schools. Because there's just for folks who haven't seen all these little details, contracts should be written, should be specific with respect to obligations. They need to be entered in good faith. We can get fined if that's the big part. We can start to get fined to a greater extent if we're forfeiting games where our students don't feel safe playing against, you know, if there's a stronger biological male identifying as a female. I just really want to urge our administration to.
We talked to Chastity yesterday directly, and I can fill you in. And when you're done, I don't want to cut you in.
Okay.
But we have, we did
Some
talk to
guidance.
them about this
Good.
particular thing, so.
Excellent. Okay. CHSA Code of Ethics, number 5. I think this gives credence to where we're coming from. Avoid any practice or technique which would endanger the present or future welfare or safety of any participant. Seems pretty basic to me that is exactly our purpose, partly for doing this. In the guidance for educators working with transgender and gender nonconforming students, there's a few points that also bolster where our board is coming from. The restroom and locker rooms situation, which is even a bigger deal for me, like I said, than the actual sports. The first point, nothing in this act prohibits segregation of facilities on the basis of gender. And then it goes on to a lot of what I think our schools are organically doing already, that I'd like to see continue. And this is for the safety of every single one of our students. Use of single-user restrooms or locker rooms, including but not limited to staff facilities, may be appropriate when all factors are considered. Other alternative arrangements may include using a nearby restroom stall with a door, PE instructor's office, etc. So those are practices that I think we can offer to all students for their safety, privacy. I just want to make sure we capture those as we go on with our resolution and policies. In the CHSA bylaws, 2850.3, where it talks about boys teams, separate teams, girls teams, co-ed teams. It's written pretty darn well. It just is, it's not specific to gender assigned at birth, how biological birth gender. I think the way it's written should be reflected in our policies. It's not in our resolution, our draft resolution right now for number 2. Oh, excuse me. For number 1, participation in athletics is just straight participation by gender of how that sport is designated. I think we do need to get a little bit more specific whether we change this resolution tonight or in the future administrative policy to delineate all of those. A couple issues. There's, you know, our daughter had friends who, like 3 or 4 girls that played hockey on the boys team for Rampart. They were very good. They did great. They didn't have an opportunity to play on a girls' high school team. So that's one of the situations we want to protect girls. You know, if they're going to be talented enough to make the team, a boys' team, I want us to consider if girls are allowed. The safety issue comes more that boys on average are stronger, could cause potential more harm to girls. So biological boys who identify as girls playing on girls' teams. So I do think we need to get specific about that and decide where we think the line should be drawn. And I believe that's, let me check my notes here besides my phone. Yeah, I think I covered everything for now. Thank
Okay.
you.
Let me reply to your penalty real fast. We did, and I will say on this topic, I don't know that I've done more research and had more conversations with different organizations and people, and Superintendent Haber has been a part of many of those conversations, and Director Payne, than we've had over this in trying to find our path, or my thought in our path. And so one of those conversations yesterday was with CHASA, was with Michael Kruger. Did I say his name correctly? And it was a privilege to be able to have his time and be able to talk with him and ask questions. And Shane got to be a part of that conversation as well. And we specifically asked him about 2860.1 and 2860.12 about this penalty. And he said, yes, technically there is a policy, but we have never enforced it. And we don't enforce it. The school that's being canceled on is the one who enforces it. He said once, maybe last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, Superintendent Happer, once last year, a school enforced it, but typically that's never enforced. And they don't, CHASA doesn't even know when that happens, really. So it is not, so yes, there is a policy, but it does not to be, in actuality, the scary policy that it appears to be. But that is something that would need to be explored on future policies on how we handle when we play teams of other districts. Should this go forward that have transgender? Does the coach decide? Does the team decide? Who makes that decision? Yeah, type thing. So I hope I answered that question for that. Was there another question in there that? Okay, very good. Anybody else want to have input? Director Payne.
I did appreciate, thank you for setting up that meeting. I think that we wanted to be able to have that conversation with them, and it was just the right thing to do amongst colleagues prior to us making a decision as a board. But I would say that as a mom of female and one male athlete, they really like to compete. And I think we want to empower our student athletes to be able to make those decisions if it comes down to, do we forfeit or do we not, or how do we proceed? It doesn't mean that they have to, or that's blanketed in our policy. I would say I wouldn't want that to be in there. I would want that to be something that the coaches and the team, just to reiterate that, decide. So that was part of that conversation. As far as some of the bylaws within CHASA, I just wanted to provide a little bit of clarity on that, if that's all right.
Please.
So one of the things in the bylaws for CHASA is, one, they have an equity code in their bylaws that says the Colorado High School Activities Association is committing to ensuring that all students have equal access and opportunities to participate in activities and athletics under the Title IX Education Amendment. Member schools shall ensure that all students have equal access. And opportunities to participate in activities and athletics without unlawful discrimination based on disability, race, creed, color, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, age, national origin, or ancestry. CHASA recognizes the right of transgender students, athletes, to participate in interscholastic activities free from unlawful discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identification. To ensure appropriate gender assignment for purposes of athletic eligibility, a transgender student athlete's home school will meet with the student to determine the gender assignment for the prospective student athlete. The CHASA will review athletic eligibility decisions based on gender assignment or transgender student athletes in accordance with its approved policies and appeals procedures. Their other bylaw, 2830, the Philosophy of Collective Skills, 2830.1 says the association does not consider the individual skills of the athlete, but considers the collective skills of female athletes with the collective skills of male athletes. To say girls as a class possess equal skills with boys as a class in athletic contests would be untrue, as we heard the other night at public comment. To decide otherwise would permit male athletes who do not possess individual skills sufficient to participate in boys' athletic contests, but whose skills are superior to those of girls, to compete in events restricted to female athletes, thus creating an inequity of skills within a class and ultimately severely limiting participation of female athletes. This would destroy the intent of the association to promote and encourage the growth of female involvement in athletic programs. I hate to read that to you. We can make that available. It's in the bylaws, but I think that those two things in themselves are, say, two very different things. And that's part of the reason that we're here today, having this discussion on what does it mean for us to have a policy for our girls that participate in athletics.
Thank you. Director Yanez?
I think you guys know I'm playing a real nasty game of catch up. So
And
I
welcome back.
Thank
So
you.
sorry. Welcome back. and
That's okay.
Congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
exciting
Thanks.
family.
Literally didn't have internet pretty much Wednesday to Sunday. So I have, read through all of my documents. Thank you for this packet, Superintendent Haberer. This is very helpful. I just am kind of playing a little catch up here. So not that I didn't know that this is a conversation to be had, but I'm less familiar with the CHSA rules. I have not dug deep into those. Was I to understand, is Mr. Alexander going to present?
There is going to be a presentation next.
Okay.
We're just kind of talking about the why and how we got
Got it.
here. And then
Okay.
we'll do presentation and then we'll do.
Okay,
discussion
great, because I'm
and-
less familiar with
Yep.
those roles, and
Mhm.
I know that's
Yeah.
not something you're very.
I just kind
familiar
of
with.
wanted to set the stage on
Okay.
why we're here and how we got
Great.
here. So,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Okay.
Thanks.
all right. Director Wilburn.
So the broader discussion that's being had, that we're having as a society, is, are you what you identify as? So if I identify as a male, am I therefore a male? And I don't think we're litigating that here tonight. I don't think we should litigate that here tonight. That's much broader than this Board of Education. What we're focusing on and what we're to focus on are two things: fairness and safety. I like to think that the safety component is relatively self-evident. There's been injuries. I mean, we've all seen these stories. No matter where you stand, you can't deny these things happen. The issue of fairness. So I want to read District 11 in the new title code that they've released in their policy manual. The very first sentence: the board recognizes that there are inherent biological differences between males and females. And that's simply a matter of fact. I'll arm wrestle almost any girl in here. Most of you will beat me, but a couple I could do okay against. It's a matter of fairness and a matter of safety. So the most recent situation to make national headlines was the Minnesota girls softball tournament. I think most of us are familiar, but for those who aren't, this is very telling. This kind of wraps it up. The Champlain Park Rebels are state champions. I believe this is from the Minnesota Star Tribune. This is a week ago, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. The Champlain Park Rebels are state champions. The number 2 seeded Rebels shut out number 4 Bloomington Jefferson 6-0 in the Class Quadruple A Minnesota High School Girls Softball Championship game. Junior pitcher Marissa Rothenberger, a trans-identifying male athlete, took the mound for Champlain Park and never gave it up. Rothenberger threw a complete game shutout to secure the title. The performance capped off a dominant tournament in which Rothenberger pitched all 21 innings across all 3 games. Those 21 innings do not include the 14 shutout innings Rothenberger pitched in the sectional finals to help Champlain Park reach the state tournament. Champlain Park's other pitcher, Ava Abrahamson, was listed as a designated player throughout the tournament, but never entered a game. To whom is that fair? Is that fair to the competing teams that got shut out and couldn't even get any wood on the ball? Is that fair to the other pitcher on the roster who never even got on the field? I mean, if that number 2 pitcher, and I don't know if this is a fact or not, but let's assume for the sake of conversation, the number 2 pitcher is in the running, in the conversation for a collegiate scholarship to play softball at the next level. Any scout that came to that tournament to watch her perform never got to see that. And that poor young child may have lost or sacrificed a potential of a partially paid for education, a fully paid for education. We'll never know. Never got on the field. My daughter was a high performing, and most of us were, unlike Susan, my daughter was high performing too. She was a runner and a jumper. I know your kids were. The year my daughter's last year at the state track meet,
She's a high jumper. The girl that won state, I believe, jumped 5'7". The minimum bar for the boys was 6'1". So no girl would have even qualified to jump against the boys, let alone won. It's simply not fair to our female athletes to force them into a competitive situation where they cannot win. And I don't want to do that to girls. So that's kind of the angle from which I view and approach this.
Thank you. I know for me, I felt the duty to protect our girls in sports, and I felt that duty to happen before fall sports started, that it was important enough for us to have this special meeting so that girls going into the fall sports are protected. They have time to plan as such. I know captain's practices are already going on and things like that, and those aren't school sanctioned events, but tryouts are, and I felt it was of the utmost importance that we can give that peace of mind to everyone involved that, no, this is where our board stands, and this is what we're going to do to clarify how our sports teams are going to be made up. And that's, part of why I felt the push to, no, we need to do this now, because people need to know they're planning where they're going to school. They're planning on what sports they're going to play. They're, all of those things. And so, if anything, I think we're behind the ball, but that's kind of the why. And I said that many times to Superintendent Haberer. Our fall girls deserve to be protected. Our fall girls deserve to be protected. And so I appreciate everyone being able to be here tonight. So I think that kind of sums up the why and why we're here. Director Payne.
May I add just a couple things? I do think that your point on the Champlin team, that girls did miss out on opportunities there. But I also think about the staff in this district, that without a clear policy and direction from top leadership of how we're going to proceed, puts it into a position of each coach, each athletic director for every school determining how they handled this, which allows for us to err on the side of inconsistency. And it is really important whenever we're doing something to this extent that we do it with consistency and that we take it at the leadership level to direct what that policy looks like so that there is clarity for at least Academy District 20. So I just wanted to add that. I think that's really important. Also to establish a culture and climate of what it looks like here in Academy District 20 moving forward, and that safety and prevention is a priority.
Thank you. All right, we would love to have your presentation now. Thank you so much.
President Shandy, could I just add one clarifying
course.
thing for anyone listening? I just want to remind folks who don't know that D20 has policy governance model, which is different than both D11 and D49. Is that correct?
It is. Yes, we have modified it last boards.
So just if anyone's wondering why we are not drafting a policy, a board policy, it just doesn't quite align with how we're structured. So the resolution is our first step to direct the superintendent to change administrative policy. I just want to clarify for folks who are wondering why we're not just doing a policy right off the bat.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Okay. If okay, I would just like to respond to a couple points you made just so that you have all the information. Nicole made a great point about we should protect all kids when we're considering locker room assignment. And one example that spoke to me in this area was we had an autistic student that was involved in unified sports that just was overwhelmed by the crowd in the locker room. And we felt it was appropriate to find a safer space for that student. So it's not just one category of students, it's all students deserve the opportunity to be protected. The second one is this confuses even veteran athletic directors, but the sport assignments, like Nicole, you were pointing out, football is not considered boys football in the state of Colorado. It's considered, it doesn't call it co-ed football, but girls can play football because it's not called boys football. So girls could play football with this resolution. Girls could play ice hockey because ice hockey is considered a co-ed sport in the state of Colorado. And some of our ADs didn't even realize that because it's never been a factor. But those sports are considered that. Unless it says boys basketball, girls basketball, there's a distinction. Girls could try out for that sport. There are some limitations with boys being able to try out for girls sports. So boys couldn't play softball, but girls could play baseball. So it's a little complicated, but I just wanted you to understand that we wouldn't be limiting girls to trying out for football or ice hockey. It's hard for them because ice hockey is dominated by male participants, but we do have participants that make the team and do quite well, but it's hard. Other teams, this was a point Susan made about the forfeits. I just want you to understand the impact of a forfeit if the board would ever go down that road of involving forfeits or having forfeits. A single forfeit can impact a school's RPI. It may not be penalized by CHSAA in the sense that they put you on probation. They could, but I don't think they ever have. But an RPI loss for a team at the wrong time to the wrong opponent, let's say a 0-win opponent and we forfeit to them, an example could be that could keep a Pine Creek football out of the playoffs if it was the wrong loss at the wrong time. So there are bigger impacts of that we just have to process. And the equity clause that somebody mentioned, that was good that you quoted that almost comes straight from the CATA material and the state statute of CHSAA puts it in there to be covered in that aspect. And I apologize in advance for this slideshow because it really just focuses on the broader how we protect students in all areas, because I just wanted you to see that we've taken over the last 2 years since you've approved the Office of District Athletics and Activities, where we've taken this area of student safety leads the state of Colorado in many areas, that some schools in the state of Colorado are modeling what we're doing. And there's been quite a bit of changes over time. So I just wanted you to see that. This just kind of says, where do we draw? How do ADs, how do coaches make decisions? And we tell coaches all the time, if you lean into district policy, you're going to be protected. You're going to protect kids and you're going to protect yourselves and the acts that you do as far as your coaching assignment. Federal and state statute, guidance from legal. If we ever have questions, I encourage, don't be afraid to ask questions because we have resources to take them to. One thing you'll see on the next slide is how old I am. I've been involved in athletics for a very long time. And have contacts all over the country. So when we struggle with something, I can reach out to a Mike Kruger or somebody across the country that has experienced or went through it before, and I can draw that in for our coaches and athletic directors so that we don't make mistakes. So we really, the part we're really working on, not only just physical safety, but mental safety as well. We want every participant to feel valued, not just a part of a team, but whether you play every minute or you don't play at all, that you're a valued member of that team. So that's really important to us. This is a younger picture of myself. I still use it. I'll still use it when I'm 70, but I kind of like that. This just says I'm really have a lot of experience with different things. And so I don't have all the answers, but I really can start a lot of quality collaborative discussions with community members, with coaches, with schools. One thing that I'm really proud of is I've led strategic planning processes for districts across the country of just saying, what are we aiming for with all these programs? What is our end game? And so we've started to take that to District 20, and you'll see a little bit of it as we go through here. This is for people that have really good vision, but it's just kind of a highlight. We do a lot of things. We meet regularly with athletic directors, activities directors, certified athletic trainers. We have regular meetings. Middle school athletic directors. We hold the symposium we started a year ago. And what we have there is speakers from across the state and country, actually. A Better Way Athletics sent 2 of their top speakers to talk to our coaches about, okay, 2 of the most litigated areas in school districts are the back of school buses and unsupervised locker rooms. Why? Why do we still have that going on? So we had speakers that specialize in that come talk to our coaches saying, we'll forgive you for a loss. We won't forgive you for something happening on the back of the bus that's inappropriate. So we took a stand on that, and our symposium this year is grown. We have the opening, Becky and her staff. One area that coaches tend to struggle in sometimes if there's issues is financial practices. A coach forgetting I can't accept cash, or how to operate a booster club. And so our opening session is every coach that attends the symposium can't say they don't know now. They have that, and it's to protect them, because we don't want to bring a coach and think about letting that coach go because they make a mistake that they should have avoided. So information is good. And I don't need to read all these things, but we're doing a lot of great things. The student survey one I'm really proud of. Next fall, we did a voluntary survey this year. Next fall, we want 100% participation of every student that participates in a CHSAA activity to complete a survey. It's about a 24-question survey that we want 100% participation. So before that sport's over, or before that activity's over, every student will complete it as a part of their checkout process, because we want to know, how are we doing? Do you feel valued? Do you feel more connected to your school because you're involved in this? Are we doing those things well? And we're going to give schools results in two different ways. We're going to say, how does your school do versus other schools in the district? How do you do versus the district average? Are there programs that struggle maybe in communication? Some struggle in value. We want to set goals that are meaningful in that data, and student voice is important, and we want to know what they thought about this participation. Couple other things I'm really also proud of. We're the only school in the state that I know of that every single athletic trainer has a Kestrel bulb thermometer. So on heat days, I spent 10 years in the Midwest, like, when it's hot there, you sweat in your office, it's hot. But we wanted to be able to say to parents, on hot days in Colorado, is it safe for kids? Should we shorten practice? And now we have data to show that. So, and what we realized is we have band students marching in parking lots. That temperature is different than natural grass field. The temperature on a synthetic turf field can be 15 to 20 degrees hotter than a grass field, a natural grass field. So we take measurements across the district on every surface before we allow practice on a given day. Most times in Colorado, I'm thankful, we can say, you know what, you should go shorter today, or instead of wearing full pads in football, maybe you just wear your t-shirts and shorts and do plays or something. So we try to protect kids in every aspect. The other one that I think was a proud, and thanks to Becky for this, we came to Becky last year with a need. We said we have about 200 football helmets at the middle school level that should not be in service. They're too old. That we cannot be using those helmets, and Becky helped schools fund that, and now we don't have one football helmet in the system that is older than 10 years. That's marvelous, and we couldn't have done that without Becky's support and Ginger's support. It just doesn't happen without that financial commitment, and that's a big chunk. We ended up destroying 200 football helmets because in order to dispose of them, you can't just throw them in the dumpster or somebody could get a hold of them. So we cut up and smashed a lot of football helmets. That was kind of fun. But that's just kind of a highlight of what we do. These are two examples that I think have been important, specific examples. Overnight travel, risk management really led this, but just some of the things we're doing is that we now approve trips in the district based on the risk level for a trip. And there's 3 levels, whether it's a day trip and there's really like you're going to go to the zoo and there's no loose animals, it's pretty innocuous, and you're going to get back by 3 o'clock by the time school's out, versus I'm taking that same group to a ropes course, a little bit higher risk. And then if you have overnight stay, there's a whole different level of risk. So what the district athletic and activities office does is if an athletic team ever spends the night anywhere, we evaluate, okay, what's your supervision plan? How many adults for how many students? Are you sharing beds? Are you not sharing beds? What's going on this trip? And the sharing beds policy that we added a layer there too is now if they want an exemption from the policy that says they will not share beds, they have to have the principal go to their PSSG and say, what is the extenuating circumstance? And there are some of those. DECA National Conference is a perfect example. DECA is one large hotel complex. And when you say these amount of kids are coming to the conference because they qualified, they specify this is how many rooms you get. You cannot stay off campus. So you have to share beds at the DECA National Conference. You have to. You can't say, well, we're going to pick up our own hotel and we're going to stay over here. They don't allow you to do that. You have to stay at the National Conference hotel. Sometimes there's an emergency. We're over in Steamboat Springs and we can't get home because of a really bad snowstorm. That would be an exemption. Anytime there's an exemption approved, the coach or sponsor in charge has to have a parent waiver signed and parents have to be informed. This is going to occur on this trip. Their students will be sharing beds. If a parent objects, again, parent voice, we listen to every single time. If a parent objects, the coach and the sponsors are directed, you have to resolve that. Can you find a rollaway? Can you get a cot in the room? You usually have an odd number of students. Can you get one more hotel room and split up that student that objects to sharing a bed or their parent objects? So we have conversations around safety and supervision all the time in different areas, but those are just two specific examples. The transgender participation, I shared that with you previously, but I just wanted you to see what CHSA right now has in their bylaws as far as transgender participation. Thank you for having the conversation with Mike Kruger, because I think that's important. It's just good insight for the board to have. And I also included the additional guidance that CHSA produces to ADs of how to make decisions in this area. And the process we would follow currently is that we would follow CHSA bylaws and state statute as they're written. If the board makes the decision to go with this resolution, the nice part about how we operate athletics and activities in the district, we can make that change within days because of the communication channels we have in place, and we'll get that out as soon as that's decided, if that's what the board chooses to do. And I just point out that that last bullet is just the autism example of if a student, for any reason, let's say a student was really self-conscious, that maybe the student just felt like, I don't want to change in front of others. We would make the accommodation for that student too. Any student that feels uncomfortable, we'll do our best. We have spaces. As a basketball official that goes around and refs all over Colorado, sometimes I'm jammed in a closet to change too. They find spaces for me. So any questions I can answer for you of all of that? Let me see if, yeah, that's the last slide. I just wanted you to have context of all the safety elements we do. I'm sorry I took so long.
No, you're fine. I will say from the conversation with Mr. Kruger yesterday, to your forfeit point about the points, he said that is true, but he said their bigger worry is when teams play that point system and you actually gain points for forfeiting. So it does go both ways.
For
yeah,
sure.
For sure. Anyone else have questions for Mr. Alexander? Director Yanez.
President Shandy. Okay, Mr. Alexander, you obviously have just huge depth of experience, and there's a couple places where I've heard, well, there's this policy, but CHSA doesn't exactly enforce it. And anytime I hear something like that, I think either we've got too many policies or that board's got some work to do to update, superfluous or antiquated policies. And if they're looking for a volunteer on their board of directors, I nominate you to help with that work. But that's actually more of a comment in that we talked about 2860.1 and 2, where that penalty is not enforced the school that's canceled on can enforce, but doesn't always. I want that in writing. And then
it's 2860.1 too. just so you know.
Got it. And then the forfeit piece, right, where CHSA could put you on probation, but probably won't. I think we're at that point where they're going to need to tighten some of that up, right? What's the word on the street on some of that?
I think CHSA as an organization itself is seeking clarity. They want this to be resolved so that they can address some of these things. And I think Mike Kruger has said it to me 2 or 3 times. I think he's in his 2nd or 3rd year. I can't remember, 3rd. he still is finding inconsistencies in the bylaws that they're addressing in every area. So I hope they really dig in, like you said. And we do have ADs on several sport committees at the state level. I'm on a committee, and we're trying to support the commissioner, because what you want is clarity so that anybody can go to this bylaw manual and know what is expected. And if there's changes made at our level, we'll advocate at the state for them to consider making changes here. But and we've made some advocacy in different areas. I just wanted you to be aware of this. Ice hockey, we think it's fundamentally unfair that girls have to beat out boys to play ice hockey in the state of Colorado. So we push the commissioner all the time saying, why don't we sanction girls ice hockey? And there's not a lot of ice time available, but still girls deserve the right to have full teams of girls playing each other. And so we're pushing all the time to have more activities that girls can have that spot like the boys.
Director Yanez, I can answer that question for you, having talked to them yesterday. The bottom line, if you summarize our hour-plus conversation, was this is a local decision. His words, Mr. Kruger's words, this is a local decision, and we want to be told what to do. That their resolution will be found in the judicial system. Those were his words, that they are relying on the court to tell them what to do. They have no plans to make this decision. They want the courts to tell them what to do. And in the meantime, districts, it's a local decision. That's from Mr. Kruger's mouth, and Superintendent Haber can confirm that, and Director Payne can confirm that he said that. Well, it does come down to this resolution as well. It is both discussions, but yes. So any other thoughts, Director Payne?
Just along those same lines, I wanted to, they definitely did say this, because I did want to back up a little bit. I was not part of this, but I did learn through this process of gathering information, and I think we've really dug in to gather everything we could possibly find on this. There was a letter that was sent from this community, but I would say it's the expanded community of Colorado Springs that included members of our board, and I think it was all board members as individuals, and other boards from other districts to CHSAA prior to any of this happening. And I was just wondering if one of you that signed that letter, which was all of you, could explain what the response was, because that in itself was an opportunity in a very courteous way to apprise CHSAA of the conflictual laws on the state and federal levels. I didn't know if anyone wanted to bring up how they responded, and then I have one more point if possible.
Yeah, I can give you that response. So CHSAA basically summation responded that they are committed to gathering insights and clarification, which he did say yesterday that they, and I think this is important to resolution 2 as well as the next decision item, that they had actually started seeking clarification on a couple of points in their bylaws from the Attorney General's office, I think it was, and it had to do with some areas where they felt like they had overreached. But neither of those, and I specifically asked the question, had to do with transgender. It had to do with requiring parental consent, I think it was, and requiring that districts report the things to CHSAA. So neither one of the things that they had started looking at modifying had anything to do with clarifying boys and girls sports or vice versa. So that was point number 1. Point number 2 was that they stated that the resolution of these issues will likely come to the state and federal judiciary, and that CHSAA will support their members by remaining informed and providing updates. So basically they said, we're not going to make any changes. We want the court to tell us what to do. And Mr. Kruger reiterated that yesterday. So please go ahead, Director Payne.
So I also wanted to just say thank you for the slides that you presented, but also like the slides on safety is a real I really like that safety was considered because like heat exhaustion and that for athletes and the differences in temperature depending on the field and all of those things that weigh in is so important in our decision making and how we train and how we protect our students. To Becky Allen, thank you for getting them the helmets because we have to make sure that the budget has sustainable dollars to make sure that we can maintain prevention and safety as a district. Same thing we have to do with car seats. Car seats have to be destroyed at a certain point or after a car accident. So I wanted to say thank you for that. My question on your slide about safety, it seemed more focused on and I wanted to go into your comments because I appreciated them about private spaces, overnight trips with sports, bathrooms, lockers, showers. Do you as athletic directors have concern with how you consistently manage that when there's someone that wants to use that does identify as a different gender?
I would have to ask. I have not been made aware of any concerns they've had in that area, that they usually meet with the family and student. And since I've been in the district, we've only had 2 students wish to participate as a transgender student.
Okay, let me clarify a little bit. So when we even look at the headlines around the country, we don't have to have something bad happen here. But when we look at instances, and I can think of different situations that have been in the headlines, but one of the things that we do have to be mindful of, and I was just curious, this might be a little off topic, but you know, we have the Claire Davis Act in Colorado. I don't know if you're familiar with that act about foreseeable events. Let me just say a few words to that because that was something that happened after the Arapahoe school shooting. And that changed the level of governmental immunity for schools specific to, and I wrote this down to bring up later, but I think it's a perfect thing. If we fail to exercise reasonable care to protect all students, faculty, and staff from reasonably foreseeable acts of violence that occur at a school or a school-sponsored activity, that's where we would lose governmental immunity. And then there is very specific penalties laid out of financial costs paid by a district, but that's not just for school shootings. That's in first-degree assaults or a sexual assault that might happen in a place that could be deemed unsafe, bathrooms, locker rooms, or showers. So I just wanted to put that mindfully in that I feel like one of the things we need to do when we're talking about safety and prevention and training is just spark that conversation with you that might be something our athletic directors need to have that conversation about. So thank you for your presentation today and thank you for your career and for being one of the valued members of this team at Academy District 20.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Superintendent Heber, do you have anything you would like to walk us through or add to this discussion?
I just wanted to make you aware. What I remember too from our conversation with Mr. Kruger is that he also acknowledged that the executive orders from the president is also like conflicting directly with the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, right? Which is also something that was pointed out in some of the legal advice that we received. And I think my impression when he said he wanted clarity is he's also feeling that clash, right, between what the state of Colorado is saying that we need to follow in their Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act as state law and then the executive orders. And we also know, as was pointed out in the lawsuit, that in the state of Maine and then Tumwater, Washington, that there was a potential loss of funding from the federal government because they were allowing maybe a transgender student who was assigned at birth as a male who wanted to play on a female sport. So I think that there's also a tension of, well, if we do a policy like we're suggesting in the resolution, it would go against what the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, how it's being defined by CHASA and other groups, although I know in the lawsuit it's being defined differently. And just to be aware of that, and that's also part of the tension that I think is being felt by CHASA and why they're wanting to have that clarity as well, because we've got the funding piece right from there, but we also have our state law, and that's part of the tension. So in our packet, I just put together, and just thank you to Mr. Alexander. Thank you for sending me all those. Everything that's in here was also sent virtually, but I thought, I don't know, I'm so old school. I try not to kill too many trees, but it's nice to have it in handy right in front of us. So everything pretty much that was referred to is in here. The resolution is on top. And I do have a question for Mr. Alexander about that. On number 1 in the resolution, it says participation. Students shall be eligible to participate in interscholastic or extracurricular athletic programs designated for their biological gender as assigned at birth. Would that statement preclude the ability for girls to participate in hockey or football, or would it not? Would that be something that you would recommend that we change? I think
Thank
that was your
you.
question, Director Crumbs.
My understanding in visiting with Mr. Kruger is that that would not
That's what I think.
impact them because, again, it's considered a co-ed sport.
Okay. So then in the packet, I have just some examples. So if you were to pass the resolution, we would then, and according to EL 2.11, which we put up, which will be on our consent agenda next time, we would then, if this resolution gets passed, we would be looking at these 2 policies as an example to say what would our policy look like, as well as definitely advice. Mr. Knight and Mr. Anderson would be the ones primarily to look at that and start putting that together along with our legal team, and I would be helping out with that as well. But just wanted to give you guys those examples. We do have this CHSA bylaw 2853. I did ask Mr. Kruger about number C, where it says girls teams. Whenever the school provides only a team or teams for girls in a particular sport, boys shall not be permitted to qualify for the girls team in that sport. Now, when I read that, I thought, well, then what's the lawsuit about? Because they're saying already that they agree with us. But Mr. Alexander, I think you designated that the intent behind that is really that if a student who is assigned at birth as a male has a gender identity later as a female and wants to play on a female sport, that this would allow for that in spite of what the wording says. When I brought that up with Mr. Kruger yesterday, a couple of times I thought I heard him say, yeah, well, there's some language we need to clean up. And that was one of them, that just, again, around that importance of clarity, which I appreciated. The other thing I wanted to point out is in the transgender policy CHSAs on the second page under procedures, I did ask Mr. Kruger about this too, and it was unclear as to whether or not this was a requirement, even though it says it's required. Sentence number 2 under procedure, the student and or parent guardian must notify the school in writing that the student has a consistent gender identity different than the student's gender assigned at birth, and listed the sanctioned events in which the student would like to participate. So the word must there, I thought was interesting. I did ask him if that would be a requirement, and what I thought I heard him say was that was example of some of the language that they are wanting to go back and look at, because many of these guidelines were set much earlier than our present time. But I think from their perspective, what I gathered and my understanding is that with the lawsuit, they really aren't able to go in and change a lot of language right now because everything's kind of on hold for them. But I did want to point that piece out as well. And then I did this piece here is just guidance for educators working with transgender and gender non-conforming students. Basically, several organizations put that together to help support our athletes. And then the last one that I think pertains to this conversation and also could pertain to the following conversation around lawsuits is the lawsuit is this game contract. And that's where there was a fine, and where Mr. Kruger said that, oh, we don't usually, that they don't really enforce it. It'd be more between the schools, but yeah, I would agree that we definitely want some clarity and some assurance around that if we were to continue to move forward with the resolution and or the lawsuit. And then the field trips, that's just information that Mr. Anderson went over. That's all I was going to share with the packet.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Director Cons, I think you have some things you want to share.
And I'm not sure, President Shandy, if you are wanting to wrap this up, but before we make any motion,
Uh-huh.
I just want to get into the real nitty gritties. So if there's any edits to this draft before we pass it, that Mrs. Ruckman can make those changes. So where I stand overall, I think this draft is succinct and pretty right on. But what I would like to see different, what I propose is for number 1, participation in athletics, that we expand that even in the resolution to give Superintendent Haber some more guidance to almost match the bylaws from CHSA. But like you just pointed out, it's intending to be open for transgender students. And so I'd like to use the bylaw 2850-3 in number 1, participation. I'd like to clearly state boys teams, separate teams, girls teams, co-ed teams. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I will let you know that
Yes.
originally we had it like that, and I did run it by our legal
Yeah.
team, and they suggested that for many reasons, and Tanya's not able to be here tonight. She specifically said it was important to change it to athletic programs designated for their biological gender as assigned by birth. And there were legal reasons for that. So I would say if we wanted to change that, I would like to have her share that legal advice before we just say we're going to change it, because there was a reason for that. It had to do with, I'm going to not get it exactly correct, but there was more of a risk, I think, by saying girls and boys as opposed to just staying with athletic programs designated for their biological gender as birth.
So do you know if that advice was pertaining to the resolution or both the resolution and?
Yeah, it was right to the resolution. And so, Mr. Alexander, do you mind coming to the mic again for me, please? Could you look at that resolution and look at what CHSA has, and just from your point of view, do you feel like what's in the resolution would pretty much cover or not what CHSA has in their resolution in the intent?
While he's looking that over.
Yeah, please.
Director Wilburn.
It could be, while Mr. Alexander's looking that up, it could be Vice President Cons, and I don't know this because I didn't talk to Tanya about it specifically, that the problem is teams as opposed to athletic competition, because not all athletic competition is team-based. So we're a little bit limiting if we're talking about teams, wrestling, swimming, diving.
It has more to do with naming girls and boys as opposed to saying programs designated for their biologic gender at birth.
Okay.
I would say number 1 as it's written is what I've seen in districts that have adopted it. And then I think there's room in number 3 for what you're asking. That maybe when the policy comes out that it's listed teams more specific in the policy versus the resolution, in my opinion.
How does the rest of the board feel about number 1 then, as part of our resolution as is?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the advice is for Superintendent Haber from us to consider with your legal team, if and can we specifically lay out in the policy?
In the policy.
Yes.
Correct.
And as Superintendent Haber said, having just adopted the new policy, we will be a bigger part
you
of
guys.
creating administrative policy.
Yes.
So we will have
feedback.
we will have a chance to
Okay.
influence that.
I just want to make sure.
Yes.
And it's all a good faith effort. Like I'm sure none of us want to get detailed in a 5-page long resolution. So I'm sure you're just hearing all the points to consider as if we vote this resolution as you go forward.
Or the policy is what you're
Correct.
saying. Correct.
Correct. Okay. So that's fine, leaving number 1 as is. I would strongly like to add perhaps to number 2, that's just locker room and facilities. I would like to consider adding lodging, overnight accommodation too. I don't know if facilities encompasses that and how it could even be related to high trails as well as athletic competitions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Do you have something you would want to weigh in on that, Ron? Do you feel like our policies already say that in the overnight guidelines that we have? And
I personally, again, this is just my opinion. I would consider adding a third, like 1, 2, and then a lodging component if that's a concern, that you specifically address lodging and overnight, that you put that down as number 3, and then you have number 4 be the administrative implementation. I think it should be separate than the locker rooms, because what's a facility mean? And I think that would address that more clearly.
so
Vice President Cons, I just wanted to say, I think it's better to clarify that and to lay it out, because especially when it's overnight stays or lodging, or like we have talked about in most of these meetings, high trails, DECA, travel with teams of any theater, whatever it might be. I think I like the input to provide a number 3 that includes lodging.
So what is the wording? Lodging and overnight? What do you want me to say in there?
One
I
second.
don't know what to say.
Just a second. So I'll just start the conversation. So you could say access to overnight lodging. Access to overnight lodging shall be limited to individuals of their biological gender assigned at birth.
Okay.
This policy is basically copy number 2 and just take out locker rooms and facilities and put in lodging. Mr. Alexander, does that cover hotel rooms, lodging, or do you want me to say hotel rooms?
I think I would say access to overnight lodging room assignments,
Okay.
because when you say we're not going to keep them from staying at a
Yeah.
lodging facility, but
Okay, so access to overnight lodging room.
Lodging room assignments
room assignments.
Thank you.
overnight shall be limited to, right? And then the rest of the wording?
Yep.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What if they're staying? Is that good? Okay. And then we'll move number 3 to number 4, Mrs. Ruckman. Okay,
And
sorry, that's number 4.
Ms. Ruckman, when you are done, will you let us know how that reads, please? I don't know if you
Yes, please.
actively did anything yet. So it doesn't have to be right this minute, but before we vote, will you kindly let us read or hear number 3?
Director Payne, did you have something to add?
The thing that I had to add, I mean, I just wanted for consideration, since we're having this authentic, transparent communication, is for consideration under the whereas, which is the why, we could consider whereas allowing biological males to participate in female sports may limit the opportunities for girls to compete, comma, earn scholarships, comma, and remain physically safe, thereby violating the intent and purpose of Title IX. To me, that's one of the whys in the very beginning that we talked about this. However, if it's your understanding, Superintendent Haber or President Shandy or Vice President, Director, anybody that was there with the meeting, that we should not directly say the why includes a biological sex reason. Is there a reason for that?
Superintendent Haber.
What I remember from my conversation with our legal counsel was, I don't know without, I mean, you read the statement. We could put it in, and I mean, without having her here, I don't know what the advice would be on that. I think the main thing was just calling out specific girl sports or girls and boys as opposed to assigned by birth. But I think if that part's in the whereas, is that, because that's what you're
That was a
saying. it's in the Whereas,
It was a why.
I obviously can't give the legal advice
No.
on that, but I don't know if that would make a difference if it's in the whereas as opposed to let it be resolved. I don't know.
So you would have that added to the last whereas?
I would do it to be above, let's see here. I would be after the fourth whereas, a whereas, and it's just for the board clarity, a whereas is just the why. So I think that's the one thing that was pretty clear in our conversation with legal. But to me, that's one of the whys. But I could read it again if that would be
Please.
helpful.
Please read it again.
Whereas allowing biological males to participate in female sports may limit opportunities for girls to compete, earn scholarships, and remain physically safe, thereby violating the intent and purpose of Title IX. To me, that's very specific as one of the whys of what Title IX states. And if I could just take a minute to clarify that, if it's okay, I've got.
Please. You can.
When and since you're here at the mics, I see our gentleman here at the mics. Right directly after the executive order at the federal government, the following day, the NCAA ruled on sports and collegiate sports. Is that something that you're aware of,
Yes.
Coach? Because I know you were a UNC coach, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Do you want to relay what they decided?
My understanding is that they passed a similar resolution that they recognized that at birth as participation, that they wanted to model it after President Trump's executive order.
So the reason I wanted, thank you for sharing that. That was a shorter summary than I was about to give, so thank you for that. But I think that's important that in collegiate sports, it took them one day to make the decision to modify their policies. I just was thinking that the other thing that happened was the federal government created what are called SIT teams, and those are investigative teams to investigate anyone that violates Title IX around the country. So that includes organizations like CHASA in California, Minnesota, Maine, and they're actively pursuing anyone that doesn't have a policy to protect their girls in sports pertaining to Title IX. And for me, I just felt like that was an important why. We need to do this as a district for all our leadership, for our staff, for our students, boots on the ground to understand the directives here at the leadership level.
Superintendent Haber.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Director Payne, if without that directly in front of me, does that mirror what the executive order said as well, what you just read? Because I've heard that that's something that's important when you put a resolution together related to this topic, is to look at the executive order to help you with the wording on it.
Yeah, let me look at that. I have it right here in my information. So Superintendent Haber, are you asking the direct executive order, or are you asking for the direct wording for the NCAA? Sorry.
My understanding is that in putting the resolutions together like this, the language, it may be better for the language to be somewhat closer to what the executive order had to say. That's just something that I've heard and just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, I'm just going to read this for you, what I have, and this is directly out of the new SIT teams, the Title IX. The United States Department of Education and the Department of Justice announced the Title IX Special Investigations Team, which is called the SIT team, to ensure timely, consistent resolutions to protect students, especially female athletes, from the effects of gender ideology in school programs and activities. Title IX SIT will streamline Title IX investigations by creating a specialized team of investigators across the U.S. Department of Ed and DOJ offices. They will apply a rapid resolution investigation process to the increased volume of Title IX cases and also enable them to work together to conduct investigations that are fully prepared for ultimate DOJ enforcement. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, today's establishment of Title IX SIT teams benefits women and girls in sports across this nation who have been subject to discrimination and indignity in their educational activities. It goes on with the Office of Civil Rights. I think that what you're wanting me to do is quickly pull up the very specifics of the executive order. Is that correct?
I'm just saying that we certainly have the right as a board you have the right as a board to put what you think is important in the resolution.
Okay.
It just may be good to know what's in the executive order and see how that is the same or might be different than what's in there.
And I'm sorry.
While she's looking, I think Director Wilburn has something to say.
Yeah, I think we could get into a paralysis of analysis because there's so much going on with executive orders and all this other stuff. Director Payne, I think I like your whereas addition. Would you read it again a little more slowly and give us permission to interrupt you at any point?
Absolutely. Whereas, allowing biological males to participate in female sports may limit opportunities for girls to compete, earn scholarships and remain physically safe, thereby violating the intent and purpose of Title IX, and then subcolon and then we would go to the next whereas.
Give me the first half of that one more time, please.
Whereas, allowing biological males to participate in female sports may limit opportunities for girls to compete.
Okay. Like it.
Director Yanez, Director Khan's thoughts on the addition?
President Shandy, without legal analysis of the addition, I think we need to be really careful. So I have the executive order pulled up here and I'm like hurriedly reading it. I'm not an attorney. I teach preschool, but I read lots of fantastic children's literature every day. I think that this is something that requires a little bit more analysis before adding. I think anytime we're adding language that hasn't been looked over, we could potentially make ourselves susceptible to litigation that we're not aware of because we're not lawyers, like just full stop. So that's my only piece about adding that tonight. What about, so the second whereas that says Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 was enacted to ensure that no person is excluded from participation in, denied the benefits of, or subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity on the basis of sex. Okay. It doesn't get into specifically biologically female until 1, 2, 3, 4, this resolution. The fourth whereas Executive Order 14201 titled Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports issued by President Donald J. Trump on February 5th, 2025 mandates that athletic programs and related facilities designated for women be limited to individuals who are biologically female at birth. And I see, because the next whereas is the board recognizes the public school leadership must act proactively, not reactively, to uphold the safety, dignity, and legal rights of students entrusted to our care. So when we're talking specifically about our female athletes, they're only mentioned in that one. So I see the leap there for the why. But I also feel that the second whereas captures that. It just doesn't call out female athletes specifically. So I understand why we would want to add it. I just am less comfortable adding something tonight without someone illegal eyes on it first. And I don't know that we have time to look into the actual executive order to find, I mean, they don't have any whereases.
Director Yanez, President Shandy, I would just like, I think it's a really good point, and I don't think it really, like, in our hearts, we know the why. We've been talking about it here tonight. I don't know that it's necessary for us to be able to move forward, and I think we could leave it out because I don't think it's essential to the bigger components are more the resolution at the bottom and the numbered 4 items.
Okay, Director Cons.
I concur. Yeah, Director Payne, I appreciate you bringing that up, but I'm a little bit more in line with Superintendent Haber that it does make me uncomfortable because our attorney, our district attorney, spent a lot of time, I know this, on this wording, and I appreciate the way it flows because it's so honed in on the executive order that it all flows together. So I really do appreciate it, but I'd prefer not to add it either.
Yeah, I think we can vote on it as is with the intention of maybe talking to Ms. Thompson about adding it. And then if we want to do a revision or something later on, we can do that. So is there anything else? Oh, sorry, Oh, yes. Hello.
Well, hi, I
Hi,
can't go board
I'm
meeting
so
without
sorry.
talking to you guys. I'm sorry.
Yes.
So I just had a point of clarification. So Director Cons, you'd mentioned you wanted to add the lodging, and you'd mentioned high trails in the same vein of this. And this is a directive to the superintendent. The title of this resolution is athletics. And so by adding high trails as an intention, you're changing this. That's going to broaden the scope beyond the resolution that I'd be really cautious about, or just add clarity to.
So high trails by definition is not athletics. It's a course. Is that correct?
It's a program.
It's a program. Okay.
And so it's it wouldn't fall under athletics or activities.
Yep. No, that's a good point.
And I really worry about the mission creep. Now I understand the intent, but I would also say that the intent behind that is captured in current policies and practices. And I worry that adding a resolution is going to muddy the waters far too much and create far more problems than it potentially might solve.
Okay.
Given that those problems are already solved with our current policies and practices.
Okay. So, but our verbiage that we added for number 3 did not say specifically call out high trails.
I just want to
It
be
was-
clear because
yes.
you said that in public statement.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Yep.
So that there's not any misinterpretation later on.
Clear. It has
Okay.
to do with athletics.
Yes.
Yes.
And that was just kind of an aside from me, not directing the resolution to be changed, but just as a bug in Superintendent Haber's ear, that of those many calls I've gotten over the years, a lot of them have to do with
So for
lodging and high
clarity-
trails.
So that's.
So
another
that's just
discussion.
for you
Just
to,
athletics,
And
okay.
just so you know, we significantly changed those last year. Yeah, so if you've gotten any since this year, I would need to know because we significantly changed those rules and even the way the lodging is supervised this past year.
right.
So
And remind me, is it specific in our policy that it's biological, same biological gender?
no, but Shane, do you want to follow up on that?
That's outside of the purview of your topic of discussion. I worry that we'd be violating the board policies on
Yeah.
other areas. So
That's fine.
we can talk about
yes.
that at another point.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
Again, it was just a little comment out of the side of my mouth.
All
Ms.
right, thank you.
Reckman, please notate to add that to the next agenda for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
But
Ms.
yes, we will keep number 3 as is related to athletics.
Yes.
And hotel lodging.
Of course, it was just a little side comment. Mrs. Ruckman, do you have that new number 3 kind of drafted yet that you could read to us, please?
Vice President Cons, can you please verify if I have this worded correctly, please? Access to lodging and overnight lodging, is that what is to be bolded as number 3?
My only suggestion is access to lodging and overnight accommodations. That's what the other school districts used, both of them.
Mhm.
Okay, so then continue, please.
Okay,
Correct.
so I have that in bold, access to lodging and overnight accommodations as point number 3 in bold. Lodging and overnight accommodation. This is where I apologize and need just verification. Lodging and overnight lodging room assignments shall be limited to biological genders assigned at birth.
So I would copy number 2. Yeah, you were so close.
Okay.
And I know it's on the fly, so please. Copy number 2 and change, take out locker rooms, changing rooms, restrooms, and any facilities, and add Director Cons.
I'm trying to go through all these notes. Okay. Bold, access to lodging and overnight accommodations.
Shall be limited.
Okay, so access to, I say, we just repeat it, right?
Yep.
Lodging and overnight accommodation, we can say room assignments.
Yep, and go slow and say it again.
I will. So access to lodging and overnight accommodation room assignments.
Okay, one moment, please.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, access to lodging and overnight accommodation room assignments.
Then it's just the rest of the.
Shall
sentence there.
be limited to individuals. I think you might have forgotten that word.
Limited to,
Individuals of their biological gender assigned at birth.
okay, perfect.
Do we want the last sentence, board? Okay.
Mhm.
And repeat this policy is enacted to uphold the privacy, comfort, and safety of all students.
Vice President Cons, may I read this again? Okay,
Please.
in bold, access to lodging and overnight accommodations as point 3. Access to lodging and overnight accommodation room assignments shall be limited to individuals of their biological genders assigned at birth. This policy is enacted to uphold the privacy, comfort, and safety of all students.
And the only thing is make gender singular, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Biological gender.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. And then number 4, administrative implementation is just numbered 4 now.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I did have a question. Do we need to say, I was looking at this later, designee is for number 4, the superintendent or their designee is directed by the ASD 20 Board of Education to develop and implement district policy. I mean, because we don't have a policy.
Yep.
So
Yes, please. Can you
to
add
develop
to
it
develop,
first. Yeah,
to develop and implement?
just got that today.
And President Shandy, do we want a deadline on the resolution, or is that just a verbal agreement?
What's that? We have to vote on a resolution before we put a deadline?
Deadline for,
For you to develop and
Policy.
implement policy?
I can tell you right now, well, here's what I'm thinking. If we were to pass this resolution tonight, I'm going on vacation. Many of my cabinet members are going on vacation. The only downtime that we have all year, downtime, because I actually did Teams meets from my camper last year, the last week in June. But is like that last week in June, first week in July. I know I will be gone. Several people are gone. So I know I'll be back like on the 9th, 10th. I think, and then in talking to President Shandy, I know, and Director Payne, there was an interest in having a policy kind of ready, a draft to look at for the board to look at before the fall sports officially start up, which is August 4th. So my suggestion would be if this resolution were to be passed tonight, would be for us as a board, for you guys as a board to pick a date the last week in July and have us another special meeting then. And I think between now and then the end of July, working together with Mr. Anderson, Mr. Knight, we could come up with something similar. And I think that our legal counsel will be back in town because she's out of town this week, so we're all kind of missing each other. So I would say we could probably have a draft policy together, ready for a meeting at the end of July, which would be before the official sports season starts up.
Are
Thank
you
you.
comfortable with that as a verbal?
I think I can
Agreement?
trust Superintendent
Yes.
Haberer to.
We do. I just wanted to
verbal
make sure
agreement.
you didn't
Yes,
want any
yep, nope.
dates
good.
in here. Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, excellent. Any other discussion before we make a motion to vote? Director Wilburn.
I'd just like to exercise my talent for pointing out the obvious. And this wasn't implicitly a part of Mr. Alexander's presentation, although he indicated it strongly, talking about ice hockey and football. This is strictly a one-way street, right? So there's really no issue with girls suiting up and recording 22 tackles and 14 sacks, scoring 15 points and grabbing 25 rebounds, running a 10-500 meter and leaving all the boys in the dust who could only run an 11-second 100 meter. It's strictly a one-way sport, a one-way street. And there's a reason for that, which is why we're doing this.
All right. If we're ready to vote, I need a motion, please.
Right. I move to approve Resolution 245-25 regarding student access to locker rooms, facilities, and athletics, and lodging.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Vice President Cons,
Aye.
Director Wilburn,
Aye.
Director Yanez,
Aye.
Director Payne,
Aye.
President Shandy.
Aye. All right, thank you very much, team, for that very authentic and messy conversation at times. But I think it's really valuable for ourselves and our community, so I appreciate that. So on to the next messy, sticky conversation. The next item for board consideration is whether to take action on joining the litigation titled School District 49 versus Sullivan et al., number 25-CV-1463D Colorado, following discussion on its potential implications for our district and alignment with board values and legal responsibilities. Discussion, please. I think we did have a lot of discussion already in the first resolution, but I think it would be good to discuss again. I'm happy to go first, but if somebody else is ready, Director Wilburn, please.
So I wasn't on the call, for those in the gallery and those watching online. I wasn't on the call with CHSAA. Got debriefed on it afterwards. What I sense is CHSAA is on roller skates, not of their own making, and they're waiting for some decisions to get made. I'm not so sure CHSAA doesn't actually want this lawsuit, and it's been mentioned by a few people already. So the court forces CHSAA's hand rather than CHSAA having to make its own decision. Some of the things that we've learned from CHSAA, it's a policy, but it's not enforced. Well, it's either a policy or it's not a policy. If you're in front of a judge and jury, the idea that it's on our books, we never enforce it, that's out the window. Hey, Mrs. Allen, I pulled you over for going 40 miles an hour on a 35. Well, I go 40 here all the time and never get pulled over. Either it's a policy or it's not. And the whole idea of pushing this down to the local level, to the local district, to the local school, I'm not buying that either. So let's just say that District 20 enacts some sort of a very strong policy, and Liberty High School plays Rampart High School, and we know that it's all girls playing girls. Now Liberty goes and plays in Salida, and some girl is competing against somebody who is physically dominant and gets a leg broken. We're still getting sued. So I think we need to push CHSAA in this direction. So what I'd like to do is Mr. Secalidi. So we've read a lot of the policies to you from CHSAA by law, but hearing it and seeing it aren't the same thing. Do you have 2850.3, that JPEG available? You do or not? You do not? 2850.3? Okay. Let's hope
Mrs. Ruckman?
President Shandy, I am able to send it over to him real quick if I may.
Sure. We do have it printed, but go ahead and for the public.
Yeah, so they can see and we can,
But we do have
Have a
it in the
discussion.
packets.
and then can you also send over after that bylaw 300, which is a PDF file? You've got that? Okay, let's do 2850.3 first. It's probably in cyberspace now. So in a couple seconds, all of you in the gallery and everybody watching online, you can see what we've been referring to. People are visual learners. I think it's just better if you can see it with your own eyes. 2850.3. I have it as a JPEG. I don't know what Mrs. Ruckman has it as.
Maybe we don't have it in our packet.
2853, but that's not what he's.
Yeah, this one? This one, yep.
I can read that. That is 300. I'm looking for 28. I'm looking at it right there. This is the one. Do you have that? Yeah, I know you, because you read from it. You're the one that quoted it. Okay, can you square that up? So we want A, B, C, and D to be, there we go. Okay, so those of you in the gallery, those online, what I'm focusing in now is part B, boy. Whenever the school provides a team or teams for boys and a team or teams for girls in the same sport, girls shall not be permitted to qualify for the boys teams in that sport, nor boys shall be permitted to qualify for the girls teams in that sport. Now, Mr. Sacalidi, can you jump us over to bylaw 300? There it is. This is the equity code. Number 2. Member schools shall ensure that all students have equal access and opportunities to participate in activities and athletics without unlawful discrimination based on disability, race, creed, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, so on and so forth. Number 3, Colorado CHSAA recognizes the right of transgender student athletes to participate in interscholastic activities free from unlawful discrimination based on gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation. So to my eyes, and again, as Mrs. Yanez says, I'm not a lawyer, but that appears a pretty straight conflict. Those seem to be at odds with one another. And what I believe is the intent behind District 40 and now District 11 is to force CHSAA to clarify, to reconcile those and say, which one do we believe in? It feels to me like CHSAA isn't necessarily going to do that unless and until they're directed to by a court of law, and that's why the lawsuit exists. That's my interpretation.
I can tell you from the conversation yesterday myself, that is exactly what Mr. Kruger said. He said, we want clarity from the courts. He did not say we don't want to decide, but basically he said, we want clarity from the courts. We will gain clarity through the judicial process is what he said.
And sometimes that's what judicial outcomes do. It isn't always necessarily about recovering compensation. It isn't always necessarily about throwing someone in jail, anything like that. I think CHSAA just wants and needs direction from the judicial body because the legislative body says one thing, its own bylaws say another thing, the executive branch of the federal government says a third thing. And they're just throwing their hands up saying, what do we want to do? So I'm not entirely sure they aren't welcoming this lawsuit.
Yeah, it did. I will say it did seem that way. He thanked us for calling, thanked us for our time, thanked us for our direct conversation, and basically said, do what you need to do. That was my takeaway. So, Director Payne.
Sure, President Shandy. One of the things that I just wanted to point out early on, and this isn't the first time, in my career that we've had this happen, but it is something that is right now for any Board of Education in the state of Colorado. We have irreconcilable conflict between our very own state laws, between CHSAA policy that has conflicting bylaws within itself, but with federal executive orders that have come out. And we have seen action taken by the NCAA to make decisions on that. And I think for us to not only make the decision of the resolution, I guess it kind of comes, again, if you bear with me, you guys are just getting to know the rookie on the board,
Yeah.
but it's just not my nature to sit back as a leader. We certainly didn't do that after the Columbine tragedy. We had to look at, is this a battle that we should fight for? Should our girls have a voice in? Should District 20 have a voice in this? I don't think we should sit back and just let other districts figure it out in a court of law. I think we have a strong voice in a lawsuit to back up what we just did in a resolution. And I think one without the other just isn't as strong.
Yeah, I will, I'll say in, you know, making any decision that we make, we look at all the variables. We look at, you know, both sides of the bumpers to, you know, to figure out what we're doing, because what we do has weight and it has consequence and all of that. I think going through and talking to all of the different entities, talk to different members of different boards about, you know, what was their thought process? What was their legal counsel? You know, Director Payne, were you able to talk to any of the other people in the lawsuit besides Chassa?
So for me, I
You can
spent,
say,
I did, I can say, I just think it was important that Chassa is named in the lawsuit. And then after working for multiple attorney generals over the course of my career and having the relationship of working in the attorney general's office, I felt the need to reach out to our current attorney general and also sit down and talk with our past attorney general. So I sat down and talked with our past attorney general, John Suthers. Also, last night I corresponded with Attorney General Phil Weiser, and briefly, we had a meeting scheduled for today. They had something that came up, so they asked, I sent it in writing and wanted to make sure, just respectfully as colleagues, that they understood that the decision that we were under and that my role on the Board of Education as a director, that we were going to vote on this issue today. And I didn't want them to hear about it after the fact, that we had, you know, very carefully gathered information and reached out for that very purpose. So I felt better as a professional, just being able to apprise him directly of the situation that we felt we were in. And I used that very language, the irreconcilable conflict between state laws and the federal executive order. Anyway, so I felt better. Just as a board, I wanted you to know that I did share that information because I had the ability to.
Director Cons. Vice President Cons.
Firstly, I truly appreciate all the time and effort of not only our staff, but our board members for diving into this so extensively in our very long, everyone for being at our long executive session so we could hear from all the attorneys and really understand this question. The lawsuit's very different for me than the resolution and policy. That's paramount to me and all the constituents I've heard from over the years, is that our district has a policy to protect the safety and fairness of females in athletics. So I am not as keen on, I mean, it's really the guesstimate, really, that's all we can call our portion right now, the guesstimate of the cost. I'm not very comfortable with spending that much money right now. We have, I feel, believe me, I've heard board members, I've heard you, that it's not much difference to you, if I'm saying that correctly, joining it now or later, but I do feel like we've got a window of another month-ish. We might not learn anymore.
I was going to say, what would
It's
we gain?
granted,
Yeah.
but the financial implications to our district at this time I'm just not comfortable myself saying yes to the lawsuit right now.
Okay. What questions would you want answered in the next month? If we were to,
Maybe the question of if 20 other large districts join and then our price tag is much less, that would be a significant change of heart for me.
Director Yanez?
So we were all up at the state capitol together when a lawmaker said to us, your job is to educate kids and you need to do a better job at it. And he also said, but the state's not making it any easier on you. This is yet another case of that. My concern as a director on a school board of District 20 is District 20 and making sure that we protect girls in sports here in District 20. From there, you hear all the usual taglines, classrooms versus courtrooms. You can't put a price tag on principals, LES, not ALS, for our school leaders out there. They're priceless. I don't know that D11 has formally jumped in on this. We have, they have, okay. Obviously the lawsuit only mentions 49 at this point. At a time such as this, right? So you've got this happening on a national level. You've got CHSA at odds with itself. You've got the state at odds with executive order. You've got what potentially will be the Supreme Court hearing. What all of this is at odds with in Title IX and then Amendment 14, right? That's where the crux of all this is going. We have no estimate on cost.
We do.
We do.
Executive session.
Okay, see, so that's, I wasn't privy to that. I hope they're right. Because that's sort of my feeling too. My concern is where's the money coming from? And I wish I could go to every single taxpayer in the school district and ask them how they wanted these funds used. But knowing that we have a resolution with an upcoming policy, is that enough? I'm going to just kind of leave it there.
In my senior moment, you said something that I was going to respond to, and I don't remember what it was now. So did you say all of that again? No, I'm just kidding.
I can actually, I took notes. What was, for the record, what was our estimate?
It was an executive session. So
can I jump in?
yes, Superintendent
Okay.
Haber.
So my understanding was that was not a formal estimate. It was a rough. And that was only if more districts joined than what currently would join if we were to join as well. We have yet to receive a formal estimate, although they said they would get us that information.
Well, they did email Tanya an engagement letter.
They did, but there was not an estimate in there that I'm aware of, because that what we saw in executive session did not have an estimated cost to us.
Okay.
Unless she has something I haven't seen, which I don't think
No,
so.
it had prices on it.
The prices on that were the amount for attorney per hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was on there, not the overall cost of the case. My suggestion and recommendation from the superintendent would be, I don't think that there is, I don't see a significant disadvantage if we're already going to have a meeting in July, to wait until July to give us more chance to kind of dig in, maybe talk to some other districts, look more nationally at what people nationally have done around this. Becky, I mean, this has come up pretty fast. We haven't had a chance to really take a close look at the budget right now. I think we don't have other funding sources. As you know, D11 has 80 million in mills per year that they get extra. D49 gets 30, we get 25 million. Am I correct with those numbers, Becky? Roughly.
I mean, we get about 26 million, 750, 862.
Yeah.
So
So
sorry, that's not very
Yeah.
rough, is it?
I knew, like, got it. I was rough. I did say rough, but I
You
was.
know, the
I
numbers
was
get
close.
ingrained.
Yes. So I think really looking at funding, we don't have some of the other funding sources that D11 and D49 have. The estimate, again, that we were given was related to if there was a fourth district, which hasn't happened yet to our knowledge. We also, there's a possibility that larger federal organizations could join mid-July and or so. And I think that we could gain a lot of clarity by the end of July to kind of see, are some of those other people that they've said are going to join, are they really joining or not? Because I think that could give us a better estimate of cost. And I think by doing that, we could still meet the, your desire, and I think Susan as well, Director Payne, of really trying to make a decision around this before our official sports season starts. And we did ask them point blank, and this was in the non-executive session because we had another meeting that was not executive. And I think that, and they said that it wouldn't be a problem if we wanted to join at the end of July after maybe we have a little bit more time. I do feel for Director Yanez being out of town, and I think out of a team spirit, it would be good for us to wait and give her a little bit more time to really look at things. And I just don't see a disadvantage of waiting until our meeting in July, other than I know that it was expressed in the non-executive session that, it might help if D20 joined at the beginning as far as the way the overall lawsuit looks and maybe in convincing other districts to join. But I see that more as an advantage personally to the attorneys at this point, as opposed to really making sure that we've looked at finance, we've looked at what's happened nationally. We've given all of our teammates the opportunity to dig deep into this, and that we'd have the assurance that, we've turned over every stone. And that's the way I like to do things. If we're going to make a decision that could have a big impact, I think it could have a significant impact on our finance. And I'm not saying it's not worth it, but I just think that I would personally like to recommend more time, at least to the end of July. And at that point, put that decision out there again.
Director Payne.
President Shandy and Superintendent Haber, just looking at my notes, as I'm just trying to, one of the things that we were told, if we delayed to join the lawsuit, the date I believe was June 20th. I'm asking you guys for your help on this, but just for the conversation that we've had, the courts may not even allow us to join that. Because anytime there's a procedural requirement or an amendment to that, that also adds costs. And do any of you remember, wasn't there a date?
It was the 24th, but we asked them point blank if they would allow us to join, and they said yes, that they didn't think that would be a problem. Here's where they said, like, if we waited till August or later, like 6 months later, one of them said, then, that would be an issue. But July, in the non-executive session where we talked to Michael, who's the one actually who will be the one litigating with the support of the other attorneys, basically said that they didn't think that would be an issue that early on. They also said that, sometimes judges, if it's like multiple addendums, they finally say, stop, we're not going to do any more addendums. But doing it in July didn't seem to be an issue at all when we asked in our non-executive session.
President Shandy,
Yes.
to Director Yanez's point about wishing she could just ask every taxpayer in our district, I was thinking the same kind of thing, in talking with other folks over the last few days. Is it even a viable option? I mean, we may make a motion and approve to join the lawsuit anyway, so it's a moot point in that case. But can we do like a quick Google questionnaire that's not paying Hanover, a lot of money for a survey? If we did not move forward with the lawsuit tonight, is that an option to send? I don't know if it's opening up a can of worms or if it's just prudent to get input about if our constituents would be in favor of joining the lawsuit or not. Yeah.
Director Wilburn.
I think it's opening a huge can of worms. We're elected to make these decisions, and no matter what decision you make, no matter what decision that decision is going to be, this or anything else, you're going to have people who are happy, you're going to have people who are upset. It's just like an election. I mean, someone wins, someone loses, some people are happy, some people are not. That's inevitable. Leaders lead, and sometimes in leadership, I'm reminded of one of the closing scenes in the baseball movie Moneyball with Brad Pitt, when he's sitting down with the general manager or the owner of the Boston Red Sox, who makes him an offer and whatever. And the guy tells him, you know, the first guy through the wall always gets bloodied up. Always. No matter what that looks like. It could be financially, I mean, it could be a lot of different things, but the first person through the wall always gets bloodied up. And I have a feeling that there are other districts around the state doing the same thing that we're doing, saying, well, it'd be nice to see if District 20 gets in, or if District 16 or whatever gets in before we make a move. And at some point, somebody has to lead. I'm not without sympathy for Director Yanez, who, due to no fault of her own, I mean, she had tremendous family obligations and she hasn't been able to catch up. We've all been there. So I'm not unsympathetic to the fact that she just hasn't been in all the meetings, hasn't done all the reading. She's got to get caught up. And maybe buying her some days to do that makes sense. Maybe it's not fair to force a vote on somebody who really just hasn't had the opportunity to digest all the information. And maybe she can make that call. I can see that as being a reason for potentially punting the ball down the road. But it would be a matter of, do you think you need that to be comfortable?
Director Wilburn, I think that we all need more information, actually. I think without any real kind of estimate of how many taxpayer dollars this may potentially cost us, I think anytime we make a financial decision, because yes, I understand we're at the tip of the spear and we want to lead. And I think we did so tonight, voting in that resolution. As far as the lawsuit is concerned, I just feel like there's too many unknowns. And I don't think that me reading any document that's been provided thus far is going to answer those questions, but I do appreciate you giving me that moment to catch my breath. You know, I see this is a power and numbers game. And if we want to play that and we want to do that, we're rolling the dice, right? So we're spending the money with no guarantees. Frankly, that's kind of how all of this goes. I mean, the state handed us books, they handed us pronouns. The fact that we didn't have other litigation regarding that is kind of surprising, right? And it's, well, Elizabeth, we just can like look at our neighbors and see how that's all going down. So I think it's my understanding that now the waiting game starts to see if the DOJ picks this up, right? That's what happens. And the benefit for District 20 saying, yeah, we want to be on board is that we get attention. We're a huge district. It's gonna say something. Should we do this? Again, my personal concern as a board member on this board sitting at this dais for just a few more months are the students of this district. And without knowing how many taxpayer dollars we're going to be using to do this, I just feel like that's a large unknown when school finance is in the place it's in. Budgets are already tight. I can never remember what it's called, Becky, the percentage of, it's between 4 and 12%. We sit at 8. What is that called?
So board policy and admin policy both require us to keep in our general fund an unassigned fund balance of between 4 and 12%. The budget that was approved is at 8.67%. So depending upon the dollar amount, that's where the money would come from. Not because it's a lawsuit or it's something that was not funded in the budget. So automatically, if we're going to add that in, it comes from the unassigned fund balance. So depending upon the amount, it would just lower that percentage.
Thank you. So if we still can jump in after knowing whether or not the DOJ actually picks this up, and we still benefit from the outcome, what amount of information can we get from now until then regarding the potential cost? That's the question I need answered, where I would feel more comfortable.
Again, I feel like we got an estimate
Yeah.
in the executive session. The specific question was asked and it was answered by Chris Murray.
And again, what I thought I heard was he gave us the percentage based on 4 districts jumping on, not 3. And all we have right now is 3 with potential, if we jump on, no confirmation of any other districts or charters for that matter, because I asked that specific question in the non-executive session.
Director Payne, did you have something?
Sure. I just received clarity, and so I just want to read this directly to you, but we would have to decide no later than next Tuesday as a district. And that is from the litigation team, Chris Murray and Julianne Ellis. Julianne Ellis?
I have no idea.
But I just wanted to clarify that if we do want to take more time to gather information, then we probably need to set another special meeting up by next Tuesday.
Is that the 24th or 23rd?
I was just going to look at my calendar. The 24th.
So I think
We had the original date as the 20th is why we had scheduled this special meeting. It was just from our, my past notes is that the 20th was the deadline. And then there was both meetings. I don't know that I wasn't as clear on the weighting of, I guess the DOJ and all of that, I don't know. Like, I don't know that that is something that I feel like we need to wait for personally. But I do think like we do have to think of that timeline. And so if we do need to gather clarity, we still would want to meet that timeline.
So my understanding of the timeline, because I flat out asked that question to Michael, who is the main litigator, Chris works for him, and he said that, and I flat out asked that as well, is that yes, you could join later. I think the difference, to your point, Susan, is the addendum, right? And that it would be up to the courts as to whether or not they would accept the addendum. They didn't think that that would be an issue for them to accept the addendum. And they certainly wouldn't have an issue with us applying for it if we waited not 6 months from now, but if we waited till the end of July.
Director Wilburn?
Did you say that came from Chris? Is that what you just said? Yes. Okay. Well, maybe that's a point of clarification that we have to nail down, if possible, within the next 24 hours. I seem to recall, and I think I recall a lot of things maybe, but we got a fairly specific high-low in executive session, not knowing who else might be jumping in or what have you. You missed that, but that information's available.
So just to recap my understanding, Lauren, Director Yanez, you want a clearer picture on price, correct?
Yep.
Okay, anything else?
So the 2 district, or I guess it would be 3 district versus 4 district price specifically.
Okay, Director Cons, what is it? Tell me again what you're looking for.
My desire was for our district to have policies in place to protect our students, especially our female athletes and all students in locker rooms and lodging. And that's it. Just at this time, I'm happy. I'll still make a motion so we can vote. But I am not comfortable with just using our district's resources at this time. Like I said, it could change in a few weeks. if we elect to wait a little bit. But I just,
Our resources will change in a few weeks.
no,
Oh.
well, the amount of resources we might expend if, say other entities join the lawsuit. But really, I just, at the heart of the matter of the possible cost of joining this litigation, I'm just not comfortable at this time doing that. I appreciate us wanting to be a front runner as a district. I appreciate all the arguments and, the details, that we all know and that have been shared with us. But I think we're doing what we need to do for our students with the policy, with the resolution and the policies. And it's just a precarious time with, our public schools on military installations, those kind of funds being so tight. And I guess financially, those are more of a priority to me than joining this district when we're already going to have policies in place.
Okay. Superintendent Haber, what stone left unturned would you like to see overturned?
I have a concern because I feel like Chris is sending something different than what I heard before. It's in direct opposition to what I heard before. So I'm concerned about that. I think that the question about joining now or later is still kind of up in the air. And there were maybe some estimates in the first conversation outside of the executive session that were out there. I would love to see some clarity in writing around what those costs would be with who's joined right now to this point. I would suggest, I'm trying to go into the solutions mode. I would suggest that maybe we reach out to Chris Martin and Michael and see if we can't get another executive session to ask those very pointed questions, because I feel like what you just read is very different than what I thought I heard before, and I just need some clarity around that personally. So my wonder is, and actually they said the 23rd or the 24th, and I know I'm leaving on the 24th. So if you feel like, because it seems that you have some connections, if you wanted to reach out to them and we were able to find a time, especially since Director Yanez wasn't able to be in on the first executive session, I think some questions have come up, and it might be helpful just to get some clarity around that. They did say, there was a suggestion in the first session, non-executive, where they said they'd probably be able to get us kind of maybe in writing more what the ranges were. All we have right now is the price per hour per attorney. And so I think I agree with Director Cons and Director Yanez that it would be nice to have something in writing around what their estimates are and get some clarity around the deadlines. So I would be open to working with Cheryl if there's a time when, if the board wanted to have another executive session before that deadline, to be able to accomplish that.
Director Wilburn, do you have anything?
Yes, I think that CHSAA as a governing body needs to communicate clearly, succinctly with its governed bodies, that being we, the school districts, and hasn't done that. We've discussed that ad nauseum. So yes, we're going to do what we need to do to protect athletes in District 20. I've already made this example. A girl playing soccer for Air Academy High School playing against a Denver team takes a 50-mile-an-hour shot off the ribs. Her ribs are just as bruised and broken in Denver as they would have been in District 20. So I think forcing CHSAA to make a decision is something that needs to happen. If our district can help CHSAA make that decision, I think we need to. My only stone in shoe, my only pebble is some clarity on dates. Dates and deadlines. Is there such a thing as a hard day to get in or a hard day to get out? We've got some conflicting on that, but that should be easy to come by. That should be easy to come by. I seem to remember the 23rd, 24th, whatever you said it was, being mentioned in the executive session, but it was a long night. We're all in there eating M&Ms and whatnot until Whatever time. So churros. So it's possible that what your note's saying, what I heard, there's some ambiguity there. I just wanted, we can clean that up. And that's the only heartburn I've got.
Director Payne.
President Shandy, the rest of the board, Superintendent Haber, my question is, and I don't know if we could take a recess or a break and I could provide one of you the contact information to see if we could get clarity and then come back to the meeting, or if it's better to schedule something different. I didn't know if that's something that we could do to get the clarity that we need.
Well, we can always take a recess, yes. Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. All right, thank you. I think in all of that, just kind of my thoughts, because we all got to go around. I think I was certainly elected to be a leader, not a freeloader, in the sense that I'm going to let someone else do the work and then garner the benefits from that. Just being an entrepreneur, I've never been of that thread, if you will, having bootstrapped my own business. So it doesn't sit right on me when someone tells me to let someone else do the work and garner the benefits from that. If I'm in a position to do the work, if you will. I mean, there are definitely times when maybe I'm not in that position to do the work and I say, I can't this time. I need someone else to pull. I don't feel like me personally in the seat am in that position right now. And I'm more of the, no, we have the ability to do the work and we should. But that's my opinion. I think our community in a larger sense, I mean, yes, we have done protection for our students in D20 right now with the resolution that we just passed. So we have set that ball in motion. This is the opportunity to increase our circle of influence when it comes to the state and the teams that we're playing, furthering the safety of our students. And I'll tell you, if a student gets hurt in a game, they're not succeeding in the classroom because they have a concussion or they have a broken leg or something like that. And that can happen whether they're playing against a boy or a girl or whatever. But if there's something that we can do to further increase our ability to keep our students safe, we should do that. I think the question is, do we need more information to be had by Friday the 20th or Monday the 23rd is what I would say. Because I believe all the questions asked have to do with money and negotiating the contract for attorney fees and timeline, yeah. And those are all questions that theoretically could be answered in 24 to 48 hours, but I mean, I could say that's, Friday the 20th, but so we have to decide as a board how we want, what motion we want. Do we want to vote now? Do we want to say we're going to have a special meeting on Friday the 20th or Monday the 23rd to come back and answer those questions and then vote? Weigh in. I mean, I can make the decision, but I would rather us do it as a team.
President Shandy,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
here and not leaving, so I can make myself available should we have another meeting. I think it was unfortunate I wasn't here for some of those conversations, but I don't think you can ever have too much information when making big decisions such as this. So that would be my thought around that.
Vice President Cons.
I don't know how much more information we're going to get, but I appreciate that we are going to try our hardest to get clarity. And I appreciate what you're saying about not riding the coattails of other districts' hopeful win with the lawsuit. But I will just say I do think this is one of those times, like you granted in what you just said, that maybe it's when we need someone else to carry us because of our financial situation in our district with our MLO, with our mills, with other things I brought up. I just want to say that I totally get what you're saying, but I do think we should consider that maybe D20 is not in as financially strong position as some of the other districts. So I just want to say that.
Yes, and I would counter that with, I also think it should be considered that there is a direct correlation to us not having upheld or not, being in a state that isn't upholding federal executive orders and cuts being made.
Mhm.
And I personally believe that showing good faith of us doing that could potentially help us claw back some of that money. Now, I can't tell you the source
I
for
know.
that or whatever, but that's my statement. I'm sticking to it.
And I appreciate that statement. And I sure would love to have that grounded. And, I'd love if we could hear that directly from some people, because that would, I'm sure, change my mind. If that's possible for people in the DOD or federal government to give us some of those
Okay.
notes.
Director Wilburn?
Also an entrepreneur, also got up every morning, put on a hard hat, stuck a shovel in the ground, euphemistically speaking, and have a lot of that as well. Comfortable with the vote tonight. However, if the rest of the board would prefer gathering what information is available, I'm flexible Thursday and Friday. Thursday, but not Thursday night. Friday or Friday night, I'm comfortable kicking that can down the road a few days, and we can tighten some things up if necessary.
Okay. Director Payne? Bless you.
I think if we need 48 hours, I mean, it seems to me like what we're asking for clarity on so everybody feels comfortable making an informed decision moving forward. That's fine. I think one of the other things that I don't know if it's possible because we've asked this, but I know there is a certain amount of money paid out by every district, having been a cabinet member in settlement funds. I mean, there's a cost of not joining the lawsuit. In my mind, I know we've had that conversation and maybe that's something up for argument, but what do we pay out as a district on the other side, outside of the general education fund, when we have to settle cases? So I just think that if we want to make an informed decision, none of this seems to be like a long turnaround in time for us to gather that information. And I would prefer personally if we could do it Thursday rather than Friday.
Okay. All right, Thursday calendars?
So let me just say, coming from our CFO as well, I think we both, Director, Ms. Allen and I would both feel much more comfortable having an official estimate, because I think from the CFO position in mind, we don't feel like we have a solid estimate. There were some numbers that were thrown out, and I think that would be important in looking at and potentially preparing for what that impact would be with our budget. I would also say that for the clarity that we need, I think it would depend, maybe our decision is like, let's make the goal to meet by the end of the day on the 23rd, but it would also depend on when Chris or Michael or both, hopefully, can meet with us just to give us that definite information, because I think it's important. It would be important to have a session with them on there where if there were any remaining questions, we could all just ask them again. We're all hearing the same information rather than them texting somebody, or, that way we're talking to them in person. One last chance to interact, to ask those questions, some of them again, so that we're all on the same page, especially with deadline. It wouldn't last that long probably, because it's more around the deadline. And then what is the estimated cost right now with who has joined the lawsuit, not projecting with who you think, right? Because that's kind of what in my mind was a little muddy. And so if we could get them to do that, I think our time might have to fluctuate a little bit depending on when they're available.
I think
But
if
we
they
could
want
reach
us to
out.
join the lawsuit, they can figure out how to make it work by Thursday or Friday.
I love that.
So there's your message. If you want us to join the lawsuit, figure it out by Thursday or Friday. We will be taking a vote on, more than likely on one of those days. So
So who's gonna,
Friday's fine.
Friday's fine.
do you want,
I don't care.
We can
who's
talk
gonna
about, we
reach
can
out?
figure it
We'll
out. We
figure
don't
out
have
the
to do,
logistics.
yeah.
Got it.
We will have a special meeting Thursday or Friday, depending on our calendars, to answer these questions and with the intention to take a vote at that time. All right. Let me get back to my script. I put it away. This meeting is adjourned.